Magic makers. I'm so excited today because this is a topic that I feel that I know I suffered from it. I struggled with it. And I think many of you might not know you suffer from it, but it's a conversation we should talk about. I have Tamar Samuels, and she is a registered dietitian with an amazing virtual company called Culina Health, who's all about focusing in on transforming your life around your health and your behavior change. And so many of us think that it's the diet that's going to help us get to the results that we want, but it's really the underpinnings that we need to focus on more about what does our lifestyle work with and how do we have our behaviors because we are who our behaviors versus we are our food. And so I brought Tamara Samuels on to talk all about this. Tamara, welcome to the show.
Hi, Kim. Thank you so much for having me.
So before we press record, Tamara and I were talking about the difference between what is an eating disorder and what is disordered eating. So we want to kind of set the stage for what we're going to talk about so that you could realize if you're in the right place or not. So what is the difference between the two?
Yeah, so disordered eating really sits on a spectrum between so-called normal eating and on the eating disorder side of things, we're looking at symptoms and behaviors that are associated with, disordered eating patterns and thoughts, but also to a higher level of frequency and severity. And so when we think about disordered eating, that can include restrictive eating, compulsive eating, irregular, inflexible eating patterns. But when we think about eating disorders, there's actually diagnosis for eating disorders within the DSM manual, which physicians and psychotherapists can use to diagnose. And there's a very specific treatment protocol for these individuals who have the more severe form of disordered eating. There's a significant impact on quality of life and a number of different health markers that are impacted with more severe eating disorders. So yeah, that's kind of the main difference, but I recognize that there's some gray space there.
Yeah, there are definitely shades of gray, because I know that, probably in the work you've seen, you see some people who are kind of like are dabbling in the shallow end of the disordered eating phase, and some who
Mhm.
are kind of like on that borderline that it could possibly be something that is more than a something that they really can't control.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So as I was joking before the call that most of the women over 40, we've been on about 5 million diets before we get to this age. And so do you think that, you know, may have contributed to the patterns of disordered eating?
Great question. You know, diet culture is insidious. It is
Mm,
something that really permeates throughout our experience as women, but also men. And it is something that is incredibly powerful and absolutely has an impact on our sense of self, our body image, our relationship with food. I think what is so challenging about a lifetime of dieting, well, there's so many challenging things related to that, but I think one of the biggest ones is not really being connected to what you need as an
yeah,
individual and how to self regulate, right? Because you're relying on these external rules to tell you how you should eat, what you should eat, when you should eat. And so I think with that, we become a little bit disconnected in understanding our own personal needs. And while we have general concepts of how to eat to support health and well-being, um, truly that how to eat is really personalized, right?
yeah,
We know that there is a large body of evidence to support, plant forward diets that incorporate lots of a variety of fruits and vegetables, right? We know that protein is important. And so are healthy fats. Like these are general healthy eating concepts that are well researched. But ultimately, the best way to eat for us is highly personalized and
right,
actually changes over time. So it's
exactly.
very dynamic, right? Um, and the challenging part is that growing up, following diets for a lifetime, really makes it difficult for you to understand the concept of
Mm,
personalized nutrition and eating because you're, following a blueprint of what to do,
yes.
which works sometimes, but doesn't work all the time, and can be increasingly frustrating.
You hit the nail on the head there. I feel that so many women over 40, we've been like, we have those like blinders on that Diet X told us that these were good foods, these were bad foods, and we kind of find that we're trying to navigate between the two. And as you said, time goes on, body needs change, but also flavor taste profiles change. So it's like, we lose touch of like, do I even like this? Or am I just eating it because I've been doing it for 20 years?
Yeah. Yeah. We have a lot of messaging and a lot of decision making when it comes to
Mhm.
nutrition, right? We have this external messaging from friends, family, social media, supplement companies, diet companies,
You name
and
it.
the USDA, right? Like we have
Right.
from dietitians, we have this external messaging from healthcare. Like there's so many different individuals and organizations and companies that are talking about nutrition and what we should eat. And it can make it really difficult for us to break through the noise and really understand what works best for us. And the diet culture makes it even harder because we're so used to following rules that somebody else makes for us.
Well, and then I also, as you were saying that, I think about now in your 40s, we have so many other decisions that we're making, right? We're, dealing with, depending on the age of your kid, what they're going through. We might be dealing with aging parents and all of the things that come around them. I might be in a higher position at work. And so by the time
Mm-hmm.
I get down to thinking about food, I'm like, girl, please. I don't like that's like, like that's already down here on my decision making list.
Yes, but the decision fatigue is real, right? It's and there's so many options for a lot of us, or not enough options for a lot of us, right?
Right.
So it can be really challenging after just managing your day to day to be able to make a reasonable choice about what to eat, which is um, so sad,
It,
because
it,
this is so foundational to our health and well-being, and like our society hasn't really set us up for success here, which just really invigorates me as a registered dietitian in the work that we do at Culina Health.
it's really funny that you say that because I see it, I teach a program all about belly fat. And one of the exercises we do in the program is I was like, write down everything you ate in the last 3 to 5 days. And then I want you to highlight everything you ate because you liked it. Then I want you to highlight everything you ate because you thought you should, and
Hmm.
everything you just absolutely ate that you hate. And it is amazing how many people are eating things because someone told me it was good. And I've been eating it and I hate it. And this one woman told me, I've been eating a salad every day and I hate salads. I'm like, stop eating the salad. And it was like it was like the heavens opened up when I told her to stop eating the salad. Right. But it's like you see it and as in your work, you see it all the time. Like people are just like, someone told me decades ago to eat blah blah blah, and I've been eating it even though I freaking hate it.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's one of those things where our relationship with food is really nuanced, right? There is space for a lot of reasons why we eat. And this, I think, is a really powerful concept for us to think about. Um, and that is, the salad. Maybe it doesn't bring us joy, but is it meeting another need for, health overall?
Right.
Can we meet that need for our overall health with something that does bring us joy? Like maybe there's a two for one we could do here, right? But I think it's important to think about the nuances of food and the role that it plays in our life. Like we may not get joy from certain nutrient dense foods, but those nutrient dense foods do meet other needs that
Right.
ultimately bring life satisfaction. Does that mean we only need to eat nutrient dense foods? No. Does that
Right.
mean we only need to eat foods for joy? No, right? And
Right.
I think that gray space, kind of bringing it back full circle, is really hard for people to live in
Right.
because of the diet culture and the rules. But there is quite a lot of gray when it comes to uh, food and your relationship with food and nutrition overall.
And I think the gray space freaks people out, right? Because it's
Yes.
like, just based on our short conversation, you strike me as the same kind of person I am. Like you're a depends, right? You're not like,
Yeah.
do this. This is like solid. It's like we have like there's solid truths. Like you're not gonna eat donuts every day and lose weight. Like I know that that's a hard truth. But I'm also like it depends. Like some people can get away with having two donuts a week. Some people can get away with having one donut a week. Some people,
One a day.
if you walk past a donut, you put on 10 pounds. So like it all depends.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, exactly. The human
So
body is very complex, and environment and genetics make it even more complex.
right,
So I think it goes back to personalized health care, personalized nutrition, and really embracing that as part of your journey, right? If you're on this journey, embrace the fact that a lot of this is evidence-based, but a lot of it is this is what the research says, but it might not work for you. We'll try and learn. We have the clinical experience to be able to understand what generally works for some
right.
people and what doesn't. But at the end of the day, you're a unique human, and the way that you eat is going to be unique to you.
And I think that message needs to get out more because I think as when, if I go to the doctor and I'm like, here are all my symptoms, and the doctor with like certainty will be like, oh, you have the common cold. But it's like my common cold might last 3 to 5 days. Yours might last 10 days. Someone else might be like, I've been feeling like crap for 20 days, and you tell me it's the common
Yeah.
cold, right? So it's like people want a black and white answer, but unfortunately, especially once we hit in our 40s and hormones are like the main driver of the party, it's really,
Yes.
our jobs become like, damn girl, we're just gonna do our best.
Yes, 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 totally. There's so many nuances when the hormones start to rage or change, and everybody's body experiences that differently. And I spoke with a dear friend, Dr. Jessica Shepard, who specializes in menopause, and she and I had a really amazing conversation about just expectation management as part
Yes.
of going through that hormonal change, right? She's like the premier doctor who speaks about menopause, and is really advocating for women within this space. And, ultimately, it's hard. It's a hard journey, but you can make it easier by managing your expectations. Like it happens. It's okay. We all go through it.
I think that for a lot of people, that is the hard part. I'm out on the social media streets just like you are, and it just makes me like have such a heartburn when someone's like, oh, I turned 40 and now I'm putting on 400 pounds. What should I do? And you hear people give these like pat answers. They're like, intermittent fast, do this, do that. And you're just like, girl, or I'm going on vacation and a week. How do I lose 20 pounds? And you hear these answers and you're like, oh my God. And it's like,
Yeah, there's no
and
playbook.
right. And then as you like sit down with a new client and you're like, this is difficult, age to navigate. We're going to do our best. And, over the next few weeks, we'll just figure things out. And like, so can I lose 20 pounds in 2 days? And you're just kind of like,
Yeah, yeah. Or you could say, well, yeah, if you wanted to drop weight fast, this is what you could do. Is it something I recommend? No. Is it going to come back? Yes, right? Like is this going to actually help you to achieve your goal? So I think that can be really empowering for people is at the end of the day, you have a choice in what you do with your body and how you get to where you want to be. But, if we do it this way, there are consequences to that. If we do it this way, there's also consequences to that, right? Like
right.
if we do it in a way that's safe and sustainable, it's going to protect your mental health, right? It'll protect your lifestyle. It will ensure that you are doing it to support overall health, and it will likely stay off for longer, right? So you'll have some sustainability there, but it will take longer, and you have to be okay with that,
Yeah.
right?
And I think, most people, and you notice the weight like this, but you don't notice the little micro. weights, the micro adjustment weights that are coming on. It's like all of a sudden it's you're up, 10 pounds or 15 pounds or whatever it is that finally gets your body to you to be like, holy moly, like the weight's here.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I think it's really about having that choice because I think a lot of people just don't feel agency over their body,
Yes.
particularly as we age. They feel this like sense of losing control over, how they feel mentally, physically, more physically than mentally, hopefully. But I think, as our hormones change, it's harder to self-regulate. And so giving people their power back by educating them, empowering them, and really allowing them to feel safe by trying things is so important as a healthcare provider within this space.
Right. So, as you're working with different clients and patients, do you like this pops up, right? It's like, oh my God, I put on the 20 pounds, I'm going on vacation, or I wouldn't fit into a certain dress or what have you. How do you recognize the difference between people who like want to just immediately fall back into that restrictive, like, okay, I need to immediately pull everything back and spend my life at the gym in order to get back into whatever it is I'm trying to get back into?
Yeah, so I think the first thing we want to think about is it harmful, right?
Mm.
And this is where we, I think, get into a challenging space with um, understanding that like body positivity is really important, self-love, really embracing who you are as a human, regardless of body size. There's huge health at every size movement, right? But is the wrong word. At the same time, we also can want to change our bodies. Um, Whatever is informing that is another conversation, but it's okay to want to change the way that your body looks, um, as long as it's not harmful, right? And so I think that's what we really have to focus on. Like, oh, I have a wedding coming up, or a big event that I want to prepare for. I have this dress. I want to feel really good in this dress. Can you feel good in the dress without losing weight? Probably,
Mhm.
right? Um, can you focus on weight loss to fit into your dress to feel good? Yes, right? Where are we doing harm though, right? Like, are methods supporting our health? Are they supporting our long-term goals? Or are our methods harmful for both of those things? So I think that's the question that we really have to ask ourselves when we're like preparing for something related to, weight loss.
Yeah, no, and I like the question because I think most people come from emotion first, and they're like, that emotional reaction is just so like visceral for a lot of people. Like, I want this and I want it right for now, versus take a pause and ask yourself some better questions so that, you're like not having lettuce and water and like hating your life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, how busy are you? Like, is it even realistic for you to focus on weight loss right now? Is Will you be successful? It doesn't make sense to embark on a weight loss journey if you don't have the capacity for it, because it does require quite a lot of self-regulation. But there are some low lift things that you can do that might end up with weight loss. Um, Maybe not, 10 pounds a week, but you can support your health, which could lead to weight loss in a way that feels relatively easeful. But if you want a more structured, intensive weight loss plan, you have to be willing to commit that time and energy. And some people are willing, but don't have it, like they're willing to do it, but they just actually don't have the time or the energy.
You hit the nail on the head that I feel that the conversation needs to gravitate more towards the capacity, right? Are you
Mm-hmm.
in I call it a season. Like, are you in a season of your life where, because if you truly want to lose weight, I'm not saying that you can't lose weight and be busy. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is if you're that person who's like, this weight has to come off like right freaking now, you have to be in a season where like that's your number one priority versus Are you shuttling kids to sports every other day and parents or work or whatever? Like it's really hard for you to put yourself ahead of all of that without
Yeah.
feeling crazy.
And this is a challenging conversation because, like, we argue that you should always put your health first, right?
Right,
But you can be healthy without focusing on weight loss, right? And you can still do the work that feels easeful for you, that will have a positive benefit on your health. But it's again going back to those expectation setting. Like,
right.
I think people get into this mindset going back to relationship with food where they're like, I tried that, it didn't work, like I tried to change this, it didn't work. Well, why didn't it work? Did it not work because you weren't sleeping, because you were stressed?
Hmm.
There's a lot that goes into changing your eating patterns. And I think people get frustrated when they don't see results, which is reasonable, right?
Right.
And then they give up, right? So I think, again, going back to that expectation setting, I want to lose weight. I want to do it in a healthy way. Great, let's do it. Do you have time? Do you have time to do these behaviors? If you don't, okay.
Right.
Can we outsource this? Right? Can we outsource
Yeah.
certain parts of this? If we can't, then we know that we have some barriers, and we need to be realistic about what we can do and focus on the things that are low lift that have a high ROI.
Yeah. No, and I like that because I feel that women don't have a conversation with people like you, right? That you just basically laid out, you're like, okay, great, I get it, you're busy. Here are the factors that are going to impact how quickly the results come. Where, they go in a Facebook group and they're like, oh yeah, it's magic. And you're just like, well, can we stop
Yeah.
with this? Like, there's no magic elixir. Like if, it's a process. And if there's a kink in the process, it's either not going to work or it's going to go slower than you want. Or as you said, I might lose the 20 pounds, but it's going to come roaring back and probably bring some more friends.
Yeah, I mean, this is why you are dieting for a lifetime, right? Like, at the end of the day, if a diet is effective, then you shouldn't have to do it for the rest of your life, right?
Right.
Like,
It-
so,
it-
uh,
exactly. So,
yeah.
as people are listening to this, and I'm hopeful that you guys are not along, you're like, I feel safe. Um, how would how would you start to kind of like start to adjust your behaviors? Because it's immediately, you've dealt with hundreds of clients. It's that like, ooh, the weight's on, and I gotta immediately like shift right, versus like taking a more, you know, sustainable, a more kind of like structured approach. How would someone start to do that if that their immediate uh, reaction typically is like, I got to pull everything out?
Yeah, yeah, great question. I think that's a big part of the challenge, with relationship with food and just dieting and weight loss in general, is that people feel very overwhelmed with, this huge task of losing weight, and really breaking it down into like bite-sized. It's a pun. I shouldn't have used it, but into like really breaking it down, into stuff that feels a little bit more manageable can be
Mm,
very empowering. So you got to celebrate the small wins
yes.
and, really focus on the small stuff, because ultimately that leads to the weight loss, right? So, you can't really do that unless you're self monitoring in some way. So people often eat, mindlessly. They
Mm,
aren't aware of how much they're eating, what they're eating, and when they're eating it. And so, if there's a foundational step to this process, it is really getting a sense of those things. Well, how much am I eating? Am I even hungry? Right? Like, am I not eating enough? Am I eating too much? Like, am I eating more emotionally than because of hunger? Right? So, I think getting back in touch with your body is so foundational to this process of sustainable weight loss and to healing your relationship with food, because then you can I will help you, and our team of dietitians will help you, but we don't live with you, so you have to do the work on your own. We can help get you there, but at the end of the day, you're eating, not us. Right? So
yeah. And it's funny that you say that. For those of you guys listening, you could hire anybody. I could hire a trainer, I could hire a financial planner, I could hire anybody. But it's a partnership, and that person is going to give you homework. And as long as you do the homework, we as a professional, we can provide you with the next steps. But if you're still on step one, you can't expect magic. Like it's not going to happen just by going to Tamar and hiring her. And you're like, Tamar, it's been about 6 weeks and I haven't lost the weight. And you're like, well, you haven't done exercise one. Like, you gotta like, um, one of my mentors, he's like, working with someone is like chess. Like I move, you move. I move,
Hmm.
you move. And so as you move, Tamara learns, okay, we did this, it worked. We did this, it didn't work. So here's the next step to pivot from around there. But it requires work. And I mean, you've been in the block, you've been around the block several times. You pretty much you pretty much know the first few steps so it's going to work, but then there's always that outlier that comes to you and you're like,
Hmm.
"Ooh,
The challenge,
you're making
which I
me
can appreciate at this point in my
you're
career.
like you're making me work for this."
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And I think that that's when um, we can really leverage the full healthcare team, right? So I think we all have different bodies. Our bodies respond differently. There are general things that work for different folks, depending on what their health history is and what they're hoping to achieve, or if they're managing any chronic disease or anything like that. But ultimately, we really have to ensure that we're leveraging our healthcare team as part of these interventions when we need them, right? Because as
Mm,
dietitians, we can't prescribe medication, we can't order labs. We spend a lot of time with our patients, and their primary care might not have that luxury, right? So we can really work together to support the patient in being successful. And I think that's why having a health ally like a dietitian is so powerful,
yeah.
because we have so much information about our patients. We work with them. We've tried interventions, have really done quite a lot of work from a behavioral perspective and have this knowledge of what the patient needs for them to be successful.
Yeah.
And we can communicate that to the team, and within their scope of work, they can support the intervention. So it's a beautiful community that really changes people's lives.
And I like that because I feel that for years, and this is not bashing doctors, but I feel that as we age, we put so much pressure on our primary care physician to be everything. And
Yeah.
they only know what they know. And as a general general practitioner, you got to know a lot of stuff. And,
Yeah. It's a hard
like,
job.
yeah, you got to know a lot of stuff. So your breath isn't very deep. You just kind of like you kind of know you kind of go by what does your patient profiles bring into you, and you might know more about that. But when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to perimenopause care, menopause care, they fall short. And it's people that go into like you, you're like, my depth is nutrition. Like that's what I know. And for many women, it is making the tweaks in our nutrition in our 40s that are going
Yeah.
to really help us get the results that we want. One, from a body composition phrase, but also from brain fog and energy and all the things that we are like, what's happening right now, can be mitigated with some lifestyle, food, nutritional tweaks.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think that can be really empowering for both, going back to the PCP conversation, right? I think it's really empowering for PCPs to be able to refer out to
Mm,
someone that they can trust to help them and their patient, right? But also really empowering for the patient. Um, patient, client, we sort of refer to them clinically as patients
right.
internally, but really empowering for the individual to be able to have solutions that they have control over, right? I can control how I move my body, what I eat, when I eat. Like sometimes that feels out of control for some folks. But generally speaking, these are things that we have agency over and can enact change on, which is very empowering, right? Like, and
Yeah.
when we start any journey, we really want to feel empowered. We don't want to feel disempowered. And after a lifetime of dieting, trying, failing, most people feel disempowered. And so, like, really reframing, going back to the relationship with food conversation, like, we're really reframing, like, how do we get to the point where you feel empowered by, the behaviors that you're doing as it relates to your food intake and your overall wellness?
And I like the power part because, I work with a lot of A plus plus personality types, and control is one of the things that they don't feel like they have right now. Right now your hormones are like, girl, step to the side, it's my time. And they are like, I have no idea where to drive this bus. And for you to be able to say, we're going to put you back in the driver's seat and help you like navigate this crazy time is and understand what's going on, I think is really empowering for them because right now they've, done all the things and feel like, should I just lay down and wait for like someone to run me over?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It can feel defeating. Um, I think it can be exhausting, right? There's so many challenges as we age, and just generally with food, right? Even growing up, having mixed messaging around food from family members to, the dietary guidelines for Americans to your
Yes.
doctor to, your massage therapist, like whomever, like somebody's giving you some sort of nutrition advice, and it's often conflicting, and it can be very overwhelming and exhausting. So having that confidence to say, well, you know what, when I eat this or this way or these foods or this in this pattern, I feel energized. I
Right.
feel my digestion is good. I
Mm.
sleep well. That I think can really help with healing the relationship with food and giving people their power back, right? Like, because it is a tool and you can use it because you eat all day, every day. So it can be very empowering.
And you're right. Like I told you that exercise that I did, like I didn't realize how powerful that was going to be for a lot of people. And, it's that most people don't realize how I'm going to use the word crazy because I called myself crazy when I look back at all the crazy rules I had about my food. So this is real talk. This is how I look at old Kim. Old Kim was batshit crazy, and she had a
We all have a little
lot.
bad shit in our life, in our
Right.
past.
She had a lot of rules around her food, but it was control, right? I was like, it was looking for a place to control. And so for that person who's like, everything you said sounds so good, Tamar. This is like, I've been looking for this island. How do I swim to it? How does someone who is like starting to, realize like they were old Kim and they're in the batshit place. How do they start? Like, what's like one way that you can start to kind of, rein in the crazy?
Yeah, I think really the mindfulness is key, right? Like take it, you can start to take back some agency around what you're eating and when you're eating it, by really understanding what's driving your behavior, right? Like just having a sense of, when I wake up and skip breakfast, I get really grumpy and really low energy. And when I get to that point, I just want to eat whatever is convenient and I don't want to
Mm,
put the time in to prepare a lunch. And so then I usually end up eating something that makes me feel even more tired, right? Just walking through that scenario with people can be really
yeah.
powerful because then they're like, oh, well, like if I just focus on breakfast, then like everything else gets better,
Yeah.
like it's like one thing I can like do that has this huge impact positive upward spiral on the rest of the day, right? And then it affects how you show up at work, how you show up, with your family and your kids, and that then also has an impact on your mood. So I think it really is about that mindfulness component. It doesn't mean you need to practice mindful eating.
Right.
Mindful eating is an important tool. It's not for everyone, but having mindfulness and awareness around what's driving your eating behaviors is foundational to this work.
Yeah. And the one of the main reasons why I wanted to have you on the show was because your company focuses primarily on behavior. And it's not this like take this diet and call me in the morning. It's more about like what supports the food.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's twofold, right? As I've mentioned, we have as healthcare professionals, we practice evidence-based care. So the good news is that we have some research, and in some cases, a large body of research to inform what our eating patterns should look like to support health and in some cases even manage chronic conditions. It's called medical nutrition therapy. So we have some research that really helps to inform all of this, which is so important. But what do we do after that? Right? Like we've got the research, now what? Like we know what's important here. We know, we can focus on fiber and that's really important for weight loss. We know we can focus on protein, also really important for weight loss. We could get down to the total, the counting the number of grams of fiber, counting the number of grams of protein. Like we can provide that information and that knowledge that is evidence based. But then what? And that's the part that people really struggle with. It's like, okay, now I know, the research says that this is important for managing my health, but like, how do I actually do this?
Mm.
you know? And that is the part where a registered dietitian can be so powerful because we're really here to get you from that point of not having any idea what to eat or when to eat or how to eat to here's what the research says, here's what my clinical experience with working with people who have similar conditions has, and here's how you can do it in a sustainable way that works for you.
Yeah, and I absolutely love that because I feel for years it was always like if do it this way. Like you have to do it this way. And if it wasn't going to work for my life, then I wasn't going to do it.
Yeah, that's right. Because like it was, and then you're creating, and then it becomes a burden, and then that's when we start to get resentful. Oh, I have to eat this, right? To just
Yes.
bring our conversation back full circle. Then you start to resent, eating vegetables,
Right. Because you told me I
because
have
it
to have a
doesn't work for
carrot
your
with every
life.
meal. And then I'm like, God, I hate carrots. Like, why do I have to have a carrot with every meal? And then it's
Yeah.
like, this vicious circle. So now if someone's listening, they're like, okay, yeah, I've always wanted to work with an RD, but I didn't think that maybe you're not in my area or whatever. Are you like anywhere in the US, anywhere in the world?
Yeah, yeah. So we are licensed in all 50 states, so we can serve individuals across the country. And we are a telehealth company, so you can meet with a Culina Health registered dietitian, virtually. So I think that really helps to remove some barriers to access. And we also take insurance, which is probably one of the biggest barriers to
Yeah.
access. Our mission is accessibility. So creating access through telehealth and access through having dietitians licensed across the country. It's huge, but most importantly, I think
The
is
insurance
that
piece.
financial
Yeah.
barrier. Yeah, yeah. So um, we're doing everything we can to ensure that really everyone can see a dietitian. Our mission is to, as I mentioned, make sure that clinical, sustainable nutrition care is accessible to everyone, and that can have a tremendous impact on health outcomes down the line and
No,
quality of life.
if we look at right now, the biggest health problem is obesity. And, if you kind of like put obesity here and you like draw a org chart of all of the different uh, causalities of other health problems, you know, fixing this makes everything else seem to fall away.
Hmm. It's interesting that you say that, because while that is, there are aspects of that are true when we think about fixing this, there's so much complexity involved in fixing that, right?
Oh, a thousand
So I
percent.
think that that's like really where we are struggling. I think when it comes to obesity medicine in general, right? Like obesity is a complex chronic condition. It has
Hmm.
multiple factors that impact the disease state or the condition, right? And so we can't just approach treating obesity from like a unilateral approach. It has to be dynamic, multidisciplinary, and highly personalized. We have some tools. Those tools are, medication, surgeries, obviously, lifestyle interventions. Like we have some tools, but at the end of the day, everything sort of has to come together in
Oh
order
yeah,
for it to
no,
work.
it's like it's like a casserole. Like, and I made it very simplistic, but for I would say a good majority of people, by focusing on their food and working out, they are first, I think the first line of defense as we work our
Yes.
way through the myriad of other kind of things that might pop up that cause these things. But for most people, just finding like learning how to eat. We were never
Yeah.
taught how to eat,
Yeah.
and we were told you have to do this for an exercise, but if that doesn't, I don't really, what if I don't like riding a bike? Like,
Yeah, totally. Totally, totally. Yeah, I think giving people back, their ability to do things their way, is what's really going to drive better outcomes, right? Like creating something that feels exciting versus,
right, exactly.
disappointing
You
or
have to look forward to it, right? If I don't look forward
yeah.
to it, or I don't look forward to the after, I'm not going to do it as consistently as I need to in order to get the results that I want.
Yeah. And maybe, you don't enjoy the food that you're eating and you don't have time to create like a healthy version of it. But maybe you enjoy how you feel after, and that's enough, So I
Right,
think it's
exactly.
about
Or,
like,
maybe you don't wake up with heartburn, or you don't
yeah,
wake, you don't always like feel like, low energy, so it's like, helping
yes,
people to find those little glimmers that can keep them eating the foods that will make them feel better long term.
yeah, it's about compromise.
Yes, compromise for sure. So, Tamar, I always ask everyone at the end of every podcast, what's first of all, before I go there, where can people find you on social media?
So you can find Culina Health on social media. Our handle is at Culina Health. You can also find us on the web, culinahealth.com, and you can sign up for a session with one of our registered dietitians seamlessly on our website. So all you have to do is go to culinahealth.com, submit your information, and you can get matched and book with one of our incredible registered dietitians.
Awesome. And so then now the question I ask everyone, what's one thing that makes you feel magical?
One thing that makes me feel magical, I think, is having a regular self-care practice
Mm,
that can look different every day, but really just taking time to be with myself, and, have me time, which is hard, which is
yes.
hard at this age and stage in life. But it goes a long way. I feel
It
pretty. I
does.
feel pretty magical after that.
It does. I call it Kim time. So but you have like a good, I think what I can't think of the literary term, but you have like Tamar time. So it's like TT.
Yeah, tea time. Yeah, tea
Yes.
time. And sometimes tea is involved as part of that. Like
Yes.
whatever it is, I just want a little bit of me time
I
where I'm
know.
filling my cup.
And when you don't have you time, you're like, this is gonna be a long day.
Yeah, things go bad. It's like a long day for me, but also a long day for everybody else who talks to
Because you're
me.
gonna all feel it.
Yes, everybody feels it. Put your mask on first.
Yes, this was such a great conversation, and thank you so much. Like so much great insight here. You guys follow Kalina. If you're someone who's been thinking about getting an RD, you have insurance, see if your insurance will cover it, or just have that free conversation and see where you can go from there. But this has been a great conversation, and they're normal. Like it's really hard to find down to earth, normal RDs, and this group is cutting through all the clutter of what you might have experienced with other RDs in the past. Thanks so much for being
Yes,
on the show.
we're kind of taking the name back.
Yes,
We're
yes,
reclaiming it, we're redefining it.
perfect.
So
I absolutely love it. Thank you so much for being on the show.
thank you, Kim.